In the early 15th century, in a time of constant war, a young girl from a small village in France would grow up to become one of the most iconic figures in history. Her name was Joan of Arc. She was born into poverty in the village of Domremy, to peasants, a girl who knew only the simplicity of country life. But she was destined for something far beyond the quiet life in nature. She was only 13 when she began to hear voices that would change the course of history forever. Voices of saints and angels commanding her to drive the English out of France and restore the rightful king to his throne. In those days, women were seen as incapable of leadership. The battlefield was a place for men only. But Joan was determined to follow these divine voices. They spoke to her of faith, courage, and an unyielding belief that France could be saved. At the age of 17, Joan sought an audience with Charles VII, the Dauphin, the heir to the French throne. She came not as a noblewoman, nor as a politician, but as a simple girl who radiated a fierce faith in her divine mission. Despite skepticism, she was given an army and sent to the occupied city of Orléans. With Joan at their head, the French troops, against all odds, broke the siege of Orléans. The English, who had dominated France for decades, were pushed back, their morale shattered. In just a few days, a turning point in the 100 Years' War was reached. It was as if the breath of France had returned. Joan's victory was not just one of military strategy, but one of faith and fire. Her presence inspired her soldiers. Her belief in the divine purpose gave them strength in the face of overwhelming adversity. She was not merely a soldier, she was a symbol, a living testament to the power of belief. But the journey was not to end in victory. As Joan continued to fight for her king, she became a target of both the English and the French nobility, who were wary of the rise of a peasant girl. She was captured by the Burgundians, allies of the English, in 1430 and handed over to her enemies. In a trial, Joan was accused of witchcraft and cross-dressing, but the charges were not what mattered. Joan's true crime, in the eyes of her captors, was her power, her influence, and her unwavering belief in her divine mission. Joan faced her accusers with dignity, her faith unshaken, her resolve as unyielding as the sword she once carried into battle. In May of 1431, at the age of just 19, Joan was sentenced to death. She was burned at the stake in the marketplace of Rouen, her body consumed by flames. But even in death, she would not be silenced. Her courage, her spirit, and her unwavering belief would live on. Years later, Joan's trial would be declared a sham, and she was exonerated. She was canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church in 1920. Joan of Arc was a figure who transcended her time, a young girl who defied the expectations of her gender, her class, and her age. She was a warrior, a martyr, and a saint. But above all, she was a woman who believed in something greater than herself. And for that, she became a symbol of hope, courage, and faith that endures to this day. Her story is one of inspiration, a reminder that even the smallest among us can change the course of history.